Good morning, students. Because of uh, the period in which to cover our course is too less, so I think it's better for us if we go side by side with our online explanations. So I think in in the last week in in the classroom I did discuss with you on the equilibrium of the industry. Okay, I won't continue with that. I'll complete that when we meet, that is tomorrow. But today I'll start straight away with another market form, that is on monopoly. We will talk about how a monopolist reach his equilibrium. What are the terms, what are the conditions that is required for a monopolist to be in equilibrium. But before we go straight away with that, with the main discussion, let us just recall ourselves on what are the important features of a monopoly market. I think if you talk about a monopoly market, okay, it is actually not a new term in which most of you have been familiar with it. Okay, you've already had some idea on what is this monopoly market. But even then, let us just go through on what is this. What is a monopoly? What type of a market it is? Here, yes, if we talk about a monopoly market, it is a market in which there is only one seller. Okay, the number of seller is only one, whereas there are a large number of buyers. Further, another important features of a monopoly market is that uh, there is no close substitute. That means whatever product that a monopolist is producing, it is quite unique. It is totally different from the others. And as such, another important feature of a monopoly market is that there is no close substitute on the goods that he produces. Further, there is a restriction on the entry of new firms. Unlike under perfect competition, we know that there is a freedom for the entry and exit of firms, but under a monopoly market, there is a restriction. Okay, for example, if a monopolist enjoy a maximum profit, okay, nobody is allowed to join him, okay, or to reap that maximum profit, because there is a restriction on that, and as such he only will enjoy the maximum that profits that he gain. Yes, there is a restriction on the entry of new firms. Another important thing, if you talk about a monopolist under this market form, there is or a selling cost is included, which means in order a monopolist to obtain to raise his demand for his product, some important costs will be needed by him to be spent or to be incurred. For example, let's say certain costs he need to be incurred in order to publicize his good. For example, let's say publicize his good it might be through a media, through newspapers, so on and so forth. So talking about under a monopoly market, a selling cost is always involved or is always incurred by a monopolist. And finally, talking about the nature of his demand curve, like most market form, the demand curve of a monopolist is also a downward sloping curve. So these are the important features whenever we talk about a monopoly market. Yes, it is that market form in which there's only one single seller, okay? But talking about the number of buyers, there are large numbers. Further, there is no close substitute for his product. There is a restriction on the entry of new firms. There is some selling cost which is needed to be incurred by him, and finally, the nature of the demand curve. That means his demand curve will always be a usual one. That means it slopes downwards. So these are the important features of a monopoly market. And now we will talk about how a firm reach his equilibrium under this market form.